Ever since I was a teenager, all I wanted was a place of my own. Back in high school, I couldn't wait to get out of my parents' house. My dad drank heavily on weekends, my mom and I clashed constantly, and the house never really felt peaceful. Arguments were normal. Tension was normal. And as I got older, things only became worse. Once dating entered the picture, there was no universe where I was bringing a girl back to that house. It was embarrassing, uncomfortable, and honestly miserable. So the moment I had even a semi-real opportunity, I took it. I moved out at 19 while I was in college. I didn't go away to school. I stayed local, commuting from home, because my parents weren't willing to help pay for anything else. That meant I was obsessively scrolling through Zillow, Facebook Marketplace, and Craigslist every single day, hunting for something cheap but livable. Eventually, I found a small apartment that checked every box. It wasn't fancy, but it was affordable, and more importantly, it was mine. I went to see it immediately. When you walked in, you stepped straight into a combined living and dining area, all open space. The kitchen sat just off to the side, partially divided by a wall. To get to the bedroom, you walked down a hallway that had two closets along the way. One I planned to use as a pantry, the other for storage. The bathroom door was also off that hallway. At the very end was the bedroom. The bedroom itself was surprisingly big. A queen-size bed fit easily, along with a couple dressers and a TV. There were two more closets in there too. I was sold instantly. I moved in the next month, and for a while life felt fine, quiet, free. A few months later, I went out drinking with some friends in town. We ran into a few girls we knew, and one thing led to another. I ended up back at my apartment with a girl I'd known through school for a while. I'll call her Sammy. We weren't close, but we'd always gotten along. We drank a bit more, put on a movie, and that was it. Nothing crazy happened. She didn't want to take things further that night, and I respected that. Eventually, we moved the movie into the bedroom, and somewhere along the way, we both passed out from the alcohol. I don't know how much time passed before I woke up, but it was still the middle of the night. What woke me was the sound of footsteps in the hallway. I rolled over and immediately noticed Sammy wasn't in the bed anymore. My heart jumped. I got up and peeked down the hallway and saw her in the living room, quietly gathering her things from the couch. She was clearly trying to leave without waking me to avoid the awkward morning after conversation. I understood completely, so I didn't say anything. I quietly went back to bed and listened as she eventually opened the front door and left. Just to be sure, I softly called out her name. No response. That confirmed it. She was gone. I relaxed, got comfortable again, and fell back asleep. About an hour later, I woke up to a loud noise. I froze instantly. My heart started racing as I laid there in bed staring at the open bedroom door. I called out Sammy's name again, even though I knew she shouldn't be there. No answer. I was scared enough that I didn't want to get up right away. Instead, I grabbed my phone and did something that felt ridiculous even in the moment. I texted Sammy, asking if she was still in my apartment. I knew it was weird, but fear overrides logic pretty quickly. That's when I noticed something at the edge of the doorway. The bedroom door was still open, and in the dim light I thought I saw something wrapped around the doorframe. I was still slightly drunk, which made everything worse. My breathing sped up. I stared, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Then I did the dumbest, bravest thing I've ever done. Without moving my phone, I swiped down and turned on the flashlight. What the light revealed made my blood turn to ice. There were two hands gripping the doorframe. Human hands. Fingers curled tightly around the wood. The second the light hit them, the hands clenched harder and then pulled back out of sight. The scream I'd been holding in exploded out of me. I screamed until my throat burned, yelling for whoever it was to get out. I jumped out of bed and stood there shaking. When I finally looked down the hallway, it was empty. I flipped on the lights immediately. After forcing myself to breathe and listening for any sound at all, I started checking the apartment. Closet by closet, bathroom, living room. There was nowhere to hide. I even checked under tables and inside lower kitchen cabinets like an idiot in a horror movie. There was no one. The weirdest part was this. I never heard the front door open or close. I locked it immediately and started calling Sammy until she finally answered. She sounded half asleep and confused. I asked her if she'd come back into my apartment. She said no. She left earlier because she couldn't sleep. I didn't explain anything. I just apologized and hung up. Then I called my best friend and told him everything. He said I was still drunk, sleep-deprived, and probably had a half-dream hallucination. Honestly, that explanation helped. It made sense. I never heard the door open. I eventually laughed it off, locked my bedroom door, and fell asleep again. The next morning I searched the apartment one more time. Nothing was missing, no signs of anyone. But something kept bothering me. I went back to the bedroom door and looked closely at the frame. My stomach dropped. There were fingerprints. Clear, visible fingerprints in the exact spots where I'd seen those hands gripping the doorframe the night before. That's when I knew it hadn't been a hallucination. I stood there staring at the doorframe for a long time, trying to process what I was seeing. The fingerprints weren't faint smudges you could explain away. They were clear, defined, exactly where fingers would naturally grip. I even took a photo of them, one I still have saved years later just in case I ever needed to remind myself that I wasn't crazy. I didn't know who else to call, so against my better judgment, I called my dad. I explained what happened, and instead of concern, I got a lecture. He basically told me I was an idiot for not locking my door. He said as long as nothing was stolen and no one was hurt, I should take it as a lesson and move on. The worst part was that he wasn't wrong. I hated that he wasn't wrong. I never found out who came into my apartment that night, or why they chose to stand silently in my doorway like something out of a nightmare. When my lease ended a year later, I moved into a better place and never looked back. But the thing is, that wasn't the first time something like this happened to me. Growing up, my parents' house never really felt like a typical family home. My dad traveled constantly for work, and my mom was always out, at friends' houses, staying with my aunt, or coming home late. It wasn't abandonment exactly. It was more like they were always somewhere else. From the time I was around 16, I basically lived alone. I ate dinner by myself most nights, watched TV alone. There were weekends where I didn't see another person in the house at all. I was an only child, and sometimes it felt like my parents valued their freedom more than anything else. Back then, I loved it. It felt like independence. I could stay up late, have friends over, talk on the phone without anyone listening. It felt like having my own house without paying for it. By the time I was 19 and going to a nearby college, nothing changed. If anything, it became even more normal to be alone. And because of that, I knew every sound that house made. It wasn't one of those places where every creak scared you. It was old, but predictable. I used to joke that the house had character. That's why what happened one night still sticks with me. I knew for a fact I was going to be alone. My dad was out of town for work, and my mom told me she was staying at my aunt's place because of a family event the next day. She even said, "It's just you tonight." And I remember not caring at all. That was normal. I made food, watched TV, and around 11 o'clock I went upstairs to my room. My bedroom was at the end of the hallway. At the top of the stairs was a small landing. To the right was my parents' room, then the bathroom and linen closet, and finally my room at the very end. I kept my door open. My parents always said it was safer that way, but I also liked hearing the house. The background noise made being alone feel less heavy. I laid in bed watching YouTube videos for a while, then shut my laptop and scrolled on my phone. About an hour later, my phone rang. No caller ID. I froze for a second. I'd never gotten a call like that before, especially not that late. I ignored it. Then it rang again immediately. That's what made me answer. At first, there was silence, then faint noise. It took a second to realize what it was. A television. My stomach tightened instantly because I could hear my TV downstairs too. I'd left it on earlier, playing quietly in the living room. The sound on the phone wasn't random. It matched it. Perfectly. No delay. Same audio. Same timing. The only way that made sense was if whoever was on the phone could hear my TV in real time, which meant they were inside my house. I tried to rationalize it. A glitch. Someone outside messing with me. anything. But when I walked to my bedroom door and listened, the audio synced even more clearly. Without thinking, I yelled down the stairs, asking who was there. The call instantly disconnected. My mouth went dry. I stepped into the hallway and listened. Then I heard it. A creak from downstairs. The unmistakable sound of weight on wood. And then someone clearing their throat. I quietly locked my bedroom door. I called my dad. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Then I called my uncle. He picked up, half asleep. I asked him if he was in my house. He got serious immediately and said no. While we were on the phone, my phone buzzed again. No caller ID. I begged my uncle to stay on the line and answered the other call. Silence. Then footsteps. Heavy footsteps. And at the same time I heard footsteps outside my bedroom door. The doorknob started to move. Someone tried to push the door open. The sounds on the phone matched every movement. I merged the calls and yelled for my uncle to come now. The anonymous caller hung up immediately, and the footsteps moved away. My uncle stayed on the phone while driving over. Those few minutes felt like hours. When he arrived, I ran downstairs. We searched the house and called the police. The kitchen window was open. The cops searched everything. The intruder was gone. Days later, police traced the call to an old acquaintance from high school. He denied it, claimed his phone was stolen. There was no arrest, no closure. And that wasn't the last time something like this happened either. A few years later, life felt more normal. I was out of college in my early 20s and doing what most people that age do, working, going out on weekends, and trying not to think too hard about the past. The earlier incidents stayed in the back of my mind, but they didn't control my life. One weekend night, my usual group was getting ready to go out. There were 4 of us, me, Cody, Randy, and Jake. Cody's house was always the meet-up spot. His parents were relaxed, and his basement was perfect for hanging out without bothering anyone. We pre-gamed there, called an Uber, and spent the night bouncing between dive bars and a packed dance bar. A few hours later, Cody and I were exhausted and decided to head back. Randy and Jake stayed out. When we got back to Cody's place, he offered me the pull-out couch in the basement. He helped me set it up, and we played a quick game of Madden before he completely destroyed me and went upstairs to bed. I was drunk, tired, and ready to pass out. The basement went dark when he shut the door. The only light came from the digital clock on the cable box, the TV's standby light, and the faint green glow of a mini fridge in the corner. The fridge hummed softly, acting like white noise. I fell asleep almost immediately. I woke up later, still in complete darkness. It was probably around 3 or 4 in the morning. My mouth was painfully dry. I hadn't brought water downstairs, and after all the drinking, I felt miserable. I considered staying put, but the thirst was overwhelming. I rolled over, glanced at the mini fridge, and then my eyes drifted to the opposite corner of the basement. At first, I thought my vision was playing tricks on me. There was a dark shape there, something I didn't remember being there before. I assumed it was a coat or a pile of something, and waited for my eyes to adjust. It moved, slowly. That's when I realized it wasn't an object, it was a person. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, but I didn't. I forced myself to stay calm. I pretended I hadn't noticed anything. I fake yawned, stretched, and muttered to myself about how stupid I was for not bringing water downstairs. I stood up and started walking toward the stairs, which meant walking closer to the figure. My heart was pounding so hard I was afraid it would give me away. I moved slowly, casually, like I was half asleep. When I reached the stairs, I turned and started going up without rushing. Halfway up, I glanced back. The figure was no longer in the corner. It was standing at the bottom of the stairs. I ran the rest of the way up and slammed the basement door shut. I sprinted upstairs and woke Cody, yelling that someone was in the basement. He immediately ran to his parents' room, and his dad was out of bed and moving before I finished explaining. The basement door was wide open. The back door of the house was open too. Cody called the police while his dad searched the basement with us right behind him. By the time officers arrived, the person was gone. They searched the house, the yard, even neighboring properties. A report was filed. I was completely sober by then, shaking, terrified. I called an Uber and went home. I never slept in that basement again. Even now, years later, I still think about that corner of the room, about the silence, about how close I was without even knowing it. 3 different places, 3 different times, and the same feeling every time. Someone watching, someone waiting. And the worst part is knowing I'll never know who it was, or why they didn't do more.